Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for always being here and following along with the stories we've experienced together. If this is your first time visiting, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. In the previous episode, after a long period of misunderstanding, distance, and emotional pain, James and Diep finally overcame all barriers to reunite. Tears were shed, heartfelt apologies were made, and above all love, a love that never truly faded, was miraculously rekindled. Their reunion wasn't just about being together again. It was a deeper connection than ever before, as if all the past pain only made them cherish each other more. It seemed like after all the storms, James and Diep could finally hold hands and walk into peaceful days, building the happy future they had fought so hard for. But life, as always, doesn't follow our hopes so easily. A quiet storm is rising, and behind it is John, the man who had clashed with James in the business world many times before. But this time, he's not just after power or reputation. John has discovered what James has always tried to protect at all costs: Diep. He knows that if he touches her, he can bring James to his knees. John doesn't just want to hurt James emotionally, he's plotting something far more sinister: to remove James from the game entirely. His goal is clear: strike the weakest point to fulfill the greatest ambition. And Diep, the gentle yet strong woman, has now become his most dangerous target. Will James be clear-headed and strong enough to protect the woman he loves? Can Diep survive the darkness quietly closing in on her? And will their love, the same love that brought them back together, be powerful enough to defeat every scheme, every danger looming ahead? All will be revealed in today's video. Make sure to watch until the very end so you don't miss any important twist. This is no longer just a love story, it's a battle between trust and betrayal, between light and darkness. So don't take your eyes off the screen, because the biggest surprise is still waiting ahead. Not long after reuniting with Diep, James received an urgent call from his most trusted subordinate. The meeting was arranged discreetly at a small coffee shop, hidden deep within a quiet alley and unassuming place, unlikely to draw attention. There, the subordinate delivered news that left James shaken. "James, John has started to move." The man's voice was low, tinged with tension. "His men have been spotted around Miss Diep's neighborhood recently. They haven't made any reckless moves yet, but they're watching, lurking as if waiting for the right moment to strike. I'm afraid this time, his target isn't just you. It's her." At those words, James clenched his fists, his eyes burning with a mix of fury and dread. He had faced many enemies in the ruthless world of business, but this time, what terrified him most was the thought that Diep, the woman he loved with all his heart, had become the target of a cruel and calculated scheme. He would not let that happen. Without hesitation, James gave a firm order. 2 elite agents from his personal team were to be deployed to guard Diep from the shadows. No drama, no letting her suspect a thing. But anyone acting suspiciously in the vicinity was to be closely monitored. Have them rotate shifts to keep watch 24 hours a day. The moment anything unusual happens, report it to me immediately. No matter what, Diep must not be put in danger. In that moment, the look in James's eyes was no longer that of a refined CEO. It was the gaze of a man ready for war, a war he couldn't afford to lose. Because if he lost this battle, he would lose his entire world. That evening, James came to visit Diep. The warm golden light in the small kitchen bathed the space in a tender calmness, so unlike the storm brewing outside. James carried his usual composed, gentle demeanor. His eyes remained soft as they looked at Diep, as if he wished time would stop in this very moment when they could be together. But behind that calm exterior was a quiet, gnawing worry that never left him. Before coming to Diep's house, James had discreetly brought along his two most trusted men. He wanted them to memorize the layout, entrances, and exits around the area to ensure her safety in the coming days. And under no circumstances would he let Diep know. He didn't want her to worry, much less be burdened by the invisible weight he was carrying. At the doorstep, James gave strict instructions. Keep your distance. Make sure she never notices you. If anything unusual happens, report to me immediately. Dinner that night unfolded as warmly as always. Diep shared small stories from her workplace, her eyes sparkling with joy. James smiled, trying to act like everything was fine. But storms never wait for permission to arrive. As the meal ended and Diep carried the dishes to the sink, her eyes drifted past the kitchen window, and suddenly she caught sight of two men lingering at the edge of the backyard. They weren't just passing by. They looked like they were standing guard. Diep frowned slightly and turned to look at James. The moment their eyes met, she knew he was hiding something from her. James thought, "Who are those two men?" she asked softly but firmly. James froze for a second. He knew he couldn't hide the truth any longer. He walked over and gently took her hand. "Diep, I'm sorry. I didn't want to worry you, but for your safety, I asked them to stay nearby. There's danger lurking, and I can't let you be here alone, unprotected." Diep was silent for a moment, then shook her head gently. "I know you're worried, but hiring 2 bodyguards to watch over me 24/7, that's too much. I'm not so fragile that I can't take care of myself. Besides, having them around makes me feel watched. I can't live every day like that." James didn't say anything. He understood Diep had always been strong, never one to be a burden to anyone. After a quiet pause, he exhaled and nodded. "All right, I'll pull them back. But on one condition." Diep tilted her head, surprised. "What condition?" "You'll come stay at my place for a while. I can't be at ease knowing you're here alone." A brief silence passed. Then Diep smiled and nodded. "Okay, I'll stay with you, but only for a little while." Her answer made James' heart settle. He held her hand tighter in that moment. He silently vowed, no matter what happens, he'll stay by her side and never let anyone hurt her again. Diep moved into James's warm, elegant villa, a place where, for the first time, she truly felt the comforting embrace of a real family. James's mother, a kind-hearted, gentle, and remarkably perceptive woman, has shown Diep special affection from the very beginning, treating her as if she were her own daughter. She never asked intrusive questions, never pried. She simply cooked delicious meals and quietly placed extra pieces of fish or meat into Diep's bowl, like a mother who always saves the best for her child. The 3 of them lived in peaceful harmony. Mornings spent sharing breakfast under the veranda, afternoons with Diep helping water the plants and brew tea, and warm, laughter-filled dinners that washed away the weariness of the day. Time passed slowly, and in that quiet stretch, the dangers seemed to fade away. John, the man who had once robbed James and Diep of their sleep, vanished without a trace. No more shadowy figures lurking nearby, no more warnings from James's men. Everything had become eerily quiet. Too quiet. Yet James remained on guard. He couldn't bring himself to believe that John had given up so easily. Still, he chose to keep that suspicion to himself. He didn't want to let it disturb Diep, the woman he had promised a peaceful life, at least for now. But for Diep, a woman used to a simple, grounded lifestyle, a quiet ache began to grow. The long, idle days inside the villa surrounded by four walls and little to do left her spirit slowly withering. She began to long for her small home, the one with the lush green garden, the swing beneath the shade of the old almond tree, the little vegetable patch she had tended by hand, the calm afternoons she had once treasured. One morning, during breakfast, Diep gently set down her chopsticks, looked at James, and softly said, "James, I'd like to go back home for a while, just to tend the garden, tidy things up. I've been here for so long, and while I'm truly happy, I feel like I'm slowly forgetting who I used to be."
Gamepod, Henu Diệp was never want to live centered. She was citizen, independent, and deeply connected to her symbology goes in love. At that moment of thought, Hena would understand. If going home make you feel more at peace, then he take you there.
Besides, his men had just reported in. John had made no move, issued no suspicious orders. Maybe everything really had passed. And so, on a quiet weekend afternoon, James drove Diep back to her familiar little house. Nothing had changed the same peaceful, modest place, filled with memories. As she stepped into the yard and saw the trees and flowers she had once nurtured still standing there, a lightness settled in her heart like a cloud floating free in the sky. That afternoon, the soft golden sunlight filtered through the leaves as James slowly drove Diep back to her familiar little home. The old wooden gate creaked open, just like the first time he had come here. This place, though simple, held countless memories. It was more than just Diep's home now. It was the heart of the love they had fought so hard to protect. James didn't just drop her off, he stayed for dinner. The two of them cooked together, laughter echoing gently in the small kitchen. Diep moved gracefully around the stove, while James clumsily helped rinse vegetables and carry bowls, occasionally sneaking glances at her sparkling eyes when she smiled. In that moment, everything felt so simple, so warm, as if the world outside held no worries at all. After dinner, they sat on the porch, listening to the soft chorus of insects under the still night sky. A breeze lifted Diep's hair, and James looked at her, his heart stirring. No more misunderstandings, no more distance. Just the two of them, and a rare moment of peace. That night, James stayed over for the first time since all the chaos. They were finally able to be together, fully, quietly, and without interruption. There was no need for words or passion, just closeness, understanding, and a love slowly reigniting in the silence between them. Diep fell asleep early, tired but content. James lay beside her, still wide awake. He turned toward her, watching her serene face, her lashes fluttering slightly beneath the warm amber light, her lips gently pressed as if dreaming something soft and safe. Reaching out, James brushed a hand lightly through her hair, a delicate touch to the most precious thing he had. In that moment, his heart held not only love but a lingering fear. He knew life was never simple. He feared moments like this were too fleeting. He feared John, the man who had never known how to give up, was still out there, quietly plotting something in the shadows. James gently tightened his hold on Diep's hand, whispering a promise he couldn't quite say aloud. "I wish things could stay like this forever. I wish no one could ever hurt you again." He closed his eyes, but his mind could not rest. In the stillness of the night, he listened intently to every sound outside like a silent guardian, keeping watch over a fragile happiness he swore he would never lose again. But life was never as simple as James hoped. While he was doing everything he could to protect each peaceful moment with Diep, elsewhere the darkness had already begun to stir. Just a few days after Diep returned to her small home, word reached John. He didn't need much time to act. With his usual cunning and cruelty, John understood all too well. The moment Diep stepped out of James's tight security ring, it was the perfect opportunity to strike. That very night, he ordered a group of trusted men to stake out the area around Diep's home, taking shifts to monitor her. They weren't foolish enough to act right away. No, they waited patiently, like predators stalking their prey, watching for the slightest misstep. Days passed, and Diep continued to live blissfully unaware in her small familiar world. In the mornings, she watered flowers, pulled weeds, and tilled the garden behind the house. In the afternoons, she hung clothes out to dry and cleaned up the old kitchen. She had no idea that from the other side of the fence, through the gaps in the leaves, eyes were silently following her every move. They documented everything: her routines in the garden, the paths she liked to walk, even the moments she stood dreamily by the gate, gazing into the distance as if lost in memory. Each detail was carefully reported back to John. She's alone most of the time. No bodyguards. The front door is often left open. A subordinate reported over the phone. John listened, then let out a cold, humorless laugh. Good. Keep watching. When the time is right, we'll make James pay. He ended the call, his eyes darkening. In his mind, this was no longer just a plan, it was a game carefully orchestrated. And this time, the pawn he was after was Diep. What is John planning next? Will he stop at just watching, or is he about to make his move? Diep remains completely unaware that she's become the centerpiece of a dark scheme. And James, will he realize the danger in time? What will he do to protect the woman he loves, when this time the enemy isn't just after her life, but determined to destroy everything? A silent war is about to begin. But in the midst of the storm, James and Diep's love will be put to the ultimate test. Can they overcome the looming darkness together and defeat the evil lurking in the shadows? Or are there still more heartbreaks and losses waiting ahead? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover heart-pounding twists, life and death decisions, and a love that must prove whether it's strong enough to withstand both schemes and vengeance.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì mọi người đã dành thời gian quý báu của mình ra để theo dõi hết video hôm nay. Và mọi người ơi, trong video hôm nay thì Diệp và Diệp đã có một khoảng thời gian khá là yên bình và hạnh phúc bên nhau. Nhưng mà liệu sự yên bình và hạnh phúc đấy có kéo dài được lâu, trong khi tên John, một kẻ xấu xa, hắn đang bắt đầu lên âm mưu để đe dọa và cũng giống như là để bắt cóc Diệp? Thì mọi người hãy đón xem ở video sau để có thể biết được thêm thông tin chi tiết hơn về video, về câu chuyện nhé. Và mọi người nếu như mà yêu quý cũng như là ủng hộ kênh mình thì mọi người hãy like, share cũng như là để lại bình luận để có thể góp ý cho kênh mình ngày càng hoàn thiện hơn. Và mọi người cũng có thể chia sẻ video này đến với những người mà mình yêu quý để cho người khác cũng có thể xem video hay và ý nghĩa này nhé. Và mọi người ơi, hãy đăng ký kênh, sau đó bật chuông thông báo để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào tiếp theo nha.